So this is Rosalind's mizzen, and that's the main. I haven't cut the topsail yet. We're going to make a topsail at some point. And this is the tack. And most of the attachment points for the sail will be cringles. So that's these, the cringle grommets. And then there's a piece of hardware that gets pressed. It'll end up like that with the correct size rope around it, which I don't have here. So, one strand will go around and back so that will be secure in there. The thimble gets pressed in that. So these grommets they're rope grommets stuck in there, like inside the layers. And then they're basted in to keep them where they want to be. And I'm sewing the grommets. The idea, I mean, there's function about all of it, but it's aesthetically pleasing as well. You want that's what makes it satisfying. It's beautiful. Yeah, I don't lost art. So much modern stuff is made to kind of barely function, and then none of the aesthetics are considered, but I think something is lost there when they're not considered. So, it's all the stitches, we try to be even, and if you're going to do it, you might as well make it look pretty as well.
I also think of handwork as being highly repairable. Is it more repairable than some other options? Or
I think so.
Hoping so.
Yeah, and if you take a large ship sail that's Oceanus or this is Clipper canvas, versus on the big stiff Dacron with the heavy webbing sewn in to the edges to create the ring or the attachment point. And you can't repair that underway. You can repair these sails because they're hand finished in the first place. Cool thing about the tan bark, it's a pain to machine it because you have to find something. It's hard to see the marks, but it shows the handwork very nicely. It's pretty. So this spring, the supplier of this stuff went away. That's one of the challenges. I was trying to find materials that will work. And we did find somebody else having a tough time getting. Prior to the pandemic, New England Rope would make us rope without the fluorescent tracer in it. And now they keep telling me they will, but they have not produced any yet. It's and they discontinued this. They told me 3.5 lofts order this stuff.
3.5 lofts.
Okay. Same with the rope folks. Well, how much can you order? I'm like, I'm not going to move your needle, buddy. Just not.
Now, Andrew sent you essentially shapes. But the way that the panels go together and things, how much of this seems like a collaborative effort where Andrew got you started, but you really made some decisions about how panels are put together and where things are reinforced and whatnot, right? Or,
Yeah, that's all me.
okay.
So he sent me the dimensions, which are not these. Yeah. Sometimes I get a sail plan, and sometimes I get, I go measure the boat, or I measure the old sails. But in this case, Andrew made the sail plan, and then we went off of this. And I essentially decide and design the shape of the sails. So your airfoil, right, the airplane wing shape. Based on the rig, it changes for different types of sails, obviously.
How flat are these sails, or how much do you allow for? It's voodoo.
I don't want to... That stuff is learned. That stuff is not in books, and it's learned. It's learned in lofts, and we like it that way.
Gotcha.
A lot of it's done by eye. It's done by experience, And that's what I have to say about shape. Yeah. And then shape also depends on your rig and how your rig's set up, whether your rig is wire, whether your rig is fiber, you know, all of those
These
things.
are loose-footed. You
Yep.
know what I mean? There's no boom on there. You know, sometimes I have to explain myself because we have like folks who aren't sailors watching.
Yeah.
But anyway, so loose-footed and things like that. So I would imagine that this is just so different than what somebody, you know, if they have seen sort of a three-dimensional sail plan in a program, you know,
Like a computer program. Yeah. That's not what I do at all. You know, so it's all laid on the floor. So in this case, we laid it out in parts because my floor isn't big enough. And so we'll lay out the parts and then we'll shape the edges with these long battens. And we walk back and forth and, you know, make sure we like the curve. And so that is how it's done. There's shape is also added to sails in the seaming. Gotcha. So you'll make the seam broader in areas and narrower in others, and that adds shape. But because these are loose-footed, you'll see the foot has a lot more curve in it than a foot that laces to the boom. I guess as far as like, there's a way to build a lug sail, and so these are just happen to be rather large. I draw on my sailing experience as well as the books and the historical, the historical books that I can find. Mm-hmm. Pictures, sometimes, I mean, not in this case, but sometimes I go back to like finding etchings of the sails, you know, the further you go back, the more we don't really know, but we can glean some things.
Yeah. And what's nice about this is you're not looking to recreate something old. You actually, if there's an improvement that you can make, this boat is open to that concept. Like there are a lot of restorations that are looking to be absolutely true to something, whereas Andrew's going to cruise this. Mm. So if there's something you can add to it that's not verboten, you know what I mean? Like you can make that advancement on this, you know.
We did have a discussion about those reefs. So the reefs are really shallow. Mm. Why? So those shallow, when I first looked at it, I said the reefs are too shallow. And Andrew and I went back and forth, and he took them directly out of this book that was written in the 30s by a man who was interviewing the old timers that were sailing with these vessels, that were fishing with these vessels. So, one thing we try to do here is try to be as authentic as possible. I think there's a lot of knowledge that is lost. That hasn't carried forward as far as like the knowledge is lost as for the reason for that. Why are those reefs so shallow? So what Andrew and I decided to say was, we should follow what was designed, see maybe why. Mm. Instead of just looking at that with our, 2024 eye saying, that looks wrong, we got to change it. So that's a lot of what I try to do here. You got to keep your thumbprint off things.
Right here, or which part is this?
So that's the head. That's the throat. So that will be the lash to the spar.
Gotcha.
That goes up and down.
Gotcha.
And I don't know. Those maybe should have been cringles, but I think cringles like stick out in a way that I don't think set very well on on the spar. Yeah. So that's why those are rings. And so they'll get a liner put after it's roped, it'll have a liner put in it, pressed in it, and then they'll leather around the edges. So these are a set of these are unobtainium. We've been making these mostly, but so these go in, they'll get pressed in. That's the last thing that is done there. Nice. So some sizes of these we make, some there's still, this is old stock. Because there's probably 3.5 lofts that use them. I don't know who the half was. I hope it wasn't me. So that is, you can see the reef points are not in there yet, but you can see how shallow they are for what it is. And then these will get rope all the way around. And the rope, I finally got the rope, but I'll dye it.
2 feet away from each other?
Yeah. They're super shallow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the possibilities of that is, you know, is a fishing boat, and like they are in the Chesapeake with all of those reefs. The idea is to not reef in bad weather. The idea is to reef to go slow so you can fish
Right.
at the right speed. So that's what I suspect this is as well.
Now, let's say there were deeper reefs wanted after experience with the boat for a little while.
You can add a reef pretty easily.
So you would do like a third
Yeah.
or whatever up there.
The other thing with these boats is that they, you know, if you were, instead of reefing, you would switch sails. So the fore would come down and the mizzen would go to the fore, and then you have a smaller sail that goes to the mizzen. Then the second mizzen, I think is what Andrew called it.
But there's no main.
Yeah, I forgot.
Isn't that
I
weird?
called this earlier the main, but it's the fore.
But that's what,
Yeah.
you know.
Because they took away I guess, what Andrew told me was that there was three, you know, if there's 3 masts, they took away the middle and they kept the fore and the mizzen. So I called that the main earlier, and it's not, it's the fore.
It's peculiar to that boat, and I think that most people, there might even be sailors now calling, if they came across one of those boats, they've been sailing it for a while, they might call it fore and main or whatever instead of fore and mizzen.
But there is, I do like the same thing is, you know, the design work is I do like, you know, you're in a way you're preserving tradition. So you like use the proper terms.
Use the proper terms. Yeah.
One reason I'm trying to find that book, or I'll just have to get it out of the library again, is that I didn't get to read the whole thing. You know, usually I'm like looking for what I need to know, and then I'm like back to work.
You can go.
Yeah. So I gotta get that book somewhere.
Yeah.
It was written by this same guy, but I think it's called Drifters.
Gotcha.
And it is, you can see the same styling on the cover, except for this, the color is maroon instead of green.
This color is knockout. I love that color.
Yeah, and this book is great. I made a suit for a English cutter and use this book a lot. That's the etching book. So for making the suit for Dove 3, as well as Maine's first ship, Virginia,
Gotcha.
with the large spritzel.
Dove meaning Maryland Dove, the one that's down in CBMM? Yeah.
So that has, you know, the earliest etchings of those, and it has small boats in it. That's what we're looking at. So it has the sprit rig in it. And it has the sprit rig in it, not like everything's set, but like in sail evolutions and stuff like that. So it's that's a pretty cool book. This looks reefed. Like, how do you reef a large spritzel?
Right. Right.
That was one of the questions.
Right. So I see what you're looking at here.
Yeah. So that one was cool. The other, what else do we have here? Not sure why that one's marked. But some of them have like That's a lateen mizzen. Maybe there are more. There are drying sails here. There's a lug. Or square. I'm not sure of the transition, the time period between the square and the lug, like when the lug first came out. But, oh, here is, there were some of them like setting the sail or in the middle of reefing or something like that. So as far as like reefing, one of the things that the Vasa sails had was, there was a sprit rig. There were small boat sails within the Vasa sails. So we got, and that large sprit rig, spritsail within the Vasa sails had a reef. And so these are the reef points, the way it was done. You can see stuff online. You can't see this online, but you can see some of their archive online. Wow. So there was reefing like this versus bonnets. So it probably was like people invented this fancy new thing. I have a reef instead of a bonnet, and other people are like, screw that, I'm not changing. You know, it's the same thing that happens today.
It's exactly the same thing.
I learned it this way is the only way to do it. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of some of the stuff that I really like to do, because you're learning about the history of the boat as well.
Oh, for sure.
You know,
Yeah.
it's part of it. Well, here's a tool thing that I love Liberty Tool for, and it's because there are no teeth left on that. And so it doesn't scar up your needle. And so they're perfect. I just got another pair from a very teeny market.
Yeah, if you can use a dull file, they got those too.
It's all three of us anyway. Like, that's, I go in there and I'm like,
Like, you again.
yeah.
All the shitty stuff's in the back.
Yeah.
Can I stop and blow my nose? Sorry.
Oh yeah, always. By the way, this is not that formal.